Well, thank you so much for talking to us, Erik. This was such an entertaining and wonderful film and so interesting. So um, thanks for joining us for this.
No, real pleasure.
So I guess what I want to start just by asking about how you first encountered this footage. I know you had done a previous documentary about John Lennon and Yoko Ono.
It's been on my radar since February of 1972. I was 16 years old when they first aired, and I vaguely remember hearing about it. I have to say I didn't watch them, but I knew that something strange was going on daytime television. And after doing the U.S. versus John Lennon, 10 years ago, this week of shows was an inciting incident that motivated the Nixon White House into basically going after John Lennon. And I was also aware that the material had been released on a VHS box set back in 1998. So I knew this show survived. I knew they were there. So in anticipation of what I knew was going to be a rather fraught election year, about 3 years ago, actually, we reached out to Yoko Ono, with whom I'd worked with on U.S. versus John Lennon, to propose the idea of this film. And then the rest, as they say, is history.
So you said that you didn't watch the show at the time, but that makes sense because the demographic for the Mike Douglas show was like very different, and that's what's so fascinating about this. Yeah, that this even happened. So could you talk about, I guess, like why did each of the main participants do this, and yeah, just to start with that.
Well, I think that Yoko had done the Mike Douglas show on her book Grapefruit, promoting her book Grapefruit. So she was aware of the venue. And I think Yoko being Yoko, she scouted it out and saw this was an opportunity for her to hijack this venue and turn it into a forum for her and John's very radical, at that particular moment, very committed political beliefs. And as Ernie DeMassa says in the film, the Douglas show recognized this was going to be a great ratings bonanza. And a question that I often get, and I'm going to answer now, they shows were the highest rated Mike Douglas shows of that particular season. So they worked, they reached a lot of people. And as a result, I think we know that George McGovern, a few months later, won Massachusetts. Nixon won the other 49 states, but had it not been for that week of shows, maybe McGovern would have lost Massachusetts as well. And yes, I'm being facetious here.
I mean, so I do feel that Yoko is like the true genius here. You really get, and she was so I guess vilified by people at the time. She took the blame for breaking up the Beatles.
Right,
and get a sense here of what a real genius she is.
Yes, and not only a genius, that rap she got for breaking up the Beatles. If she hadn't met John at that gallery in 1966 and really connected with him significantly in 1968, there's an argument there would have been no White Album. There would have been no Abbey Road, because John was unmoored. John was doing a lot of drugs, unsupervised, and was really falling apart before Yoko sort of settled him. So who knows? In an alternative history, John Lennon could have gone full metal Jimi Hendrix and not survived the 60s. So there's that. And also Yoko and John, in their own weird way, are equivalent geniuses. John is, of course, a musical genius and a performing entertainer genius. And Yoko, though, has this conceptual art, organizational force of nature genius, where she clearly organizes things. So you can see how compatible they were. And what's extraordinary about these 5 shows, and hopefully my film, you can see kind of under the hood of their relationship. You can just see the little nuances, how John immediately holds Yoko's hand when he first comes out for reassurance and vice versa. And as they get more and more comfortable with Mike, John is even doing henpecked husband shtick. It's a couple of points, which is just lovely to watch. It's a very different side of John. And John, of course, just never looked better, never looked better. I think this is the best John on screen since A Hard Day's Night, as far as a film in the big screen. He just was engaged, looked good, was funny, great rock and roll, made funny faces, was incredibly insightful politically. So that was another strong motivation to do this project, because these tapes were literally disintegrating, and this showcase for not only the politics and the culture of 1972, but to show off kind of how good John and Yoko looked was an imperative.
So what was a few of the key decisions you made as a filmmaker? I mean, one thing I respect about this, a lot of times you see documentaries and you get clips that are just like too short to give a sense of the thing.
And that's the key thing. That was the key decision, was I did not want to make the film about the thing. I wanted it to be the thing. I wanted to present a 90-minute, which is close to the length of the Mike Douglas shows. Each one was 90 minutes long, and my film is 148 minutes. I wanted to give a feeling that you actually saw the week of shows. You really immersed yourself. You were familiar enough with all the nuances of the show that you could see the evolution, you could see the comfort level growing, you could track what was going on. And I also did not want anybody on camera telling the audience how important it was. So you have no annoying voices such as mine right now explaining why the film is significant. I want the audience to find that on their own, and hopefully—
You don't have, authoritative talking heads. Was it hard to track all those guests down and get them to participate?
It wasn't hard, but it was a challenge, and it wasn't too difficult to ask the people to participate. And when I found out that many of them had not seen the shows in 50 years, the morning of the first shoot, the morning we started filming, where I filmed Nabucco and David Rosenboom, same day, 120-degree heat wave in LA. We did Nabucco in the morning and David in the afternoon. That morning at 7:30 in the morning, I called my cameraman to say, let's film them watching the shows. So he had to scramble to set up all the rigs so we could do that the very morning of the first shoot. Wow. So, and then once I applied that filter to everything, it made it more easy to compress the material, because we obviously wanted to revolve around the guests. And I wanted that direct— I'm not a documentary filmmaker on this project. I conceived of myself as— I'm in the transportation business. I wanted to open up a time portal, not a time capsule, a time portal to 1972, allow people to go back, and then allow the people back then to walk onto the stage today and all the content to do. So it was a very conscious decision to make the film this way. And this is the thing that I ran by Sean Lennon before we started, because I wanted, encouraged, and I was happy to get their input as I made this thing.
Great. So you said that John Lennon is terrific at this. It comes across great, but the other star of the movie is Mike Douglas himself, and he's so interesting to watch. I really love the interview with Jerry Rubin, and he has a way of
disarming people. Yeah, disarming people. And then I've watched, when you see this, everyone's just seen this on the big screen. You're seeing Mike Douglas filling a movie theater screen. You don't see a split second of him pretending or a mask of condescension. He has this sort of childlike sense of wonder when he's on screen, and Yoko and John are wired up to the electrodes and all that weird synthesizer music is going. He just looks like a little kid. He looks like he's 12 years old. He's totally into the cooking segment. And he just had a graciousness about him. And that was another reason I wanted to make this film. And I wanted this film to be shown right now, like you've seen it a few weeks before this apocalyptic election, is a reminder of how people can communicate and how people can trust. Mike Douglas—
Yeah, I think the most, along those lines, what's most starkly different about today's media environment is that here's a show that is actually showing revolutionary ideas and being sincere about it, but there's an open-mindedness. It's not as though, usually if you turn on cable these days, you're going to listen to one side or the other.
Or it's people yelling across each other. Politics is degenerated into wrestling at this point. It has no more basis in reality. And because Donald Trump has mastered the language of wrestling and always understood it, he was ahead of the Democrats in doing it. So yeah, that's my theory about Donald Trump in a nutshell. And back here, it was much more conversational. There was remember the Tonight Show, the Carson Show was 90 minutes long. You had Dick Cavett on at night, which was a very much more urban New York kind of sophisticated take on this material. But there was a precedent for this kind of conversation. And what Mike was doing was a variety show, you know, music, talk, cooking, much more a daytime show. And what's fascinating is how John and Yoko plugged into that matrix. And I think the most extreme bit of conceptual art that Yoko Ono not only did that week, but has done in her entire lifetime was that cooking segment with Chuck Berry. I mean, you can't go wrong with...
That was, yeah. By the way, the food did not look very appetizing.
And Mike, you can tell Mike was not particularly thrilled to be eating it, but it's a great moment. And you really see John totally letting his guard down. He's just having fun. And that's just such a great thing to see, is to see John Lennon relaxed and having fun, because his life was so fraught in so many ways. And that's why I bring up Hard Day's Night. That's a film where, as fictitious as it is, it captures the Beatles enjoying themselves and having fun, and John being John and having fun. And I really think that this film, strangely, is a oddball sequel to A Hard Day's Night, where it has John put in all this unfamiliar environments and reacting as only John can do.
I mean, it's certainly special to see, you know, John and Chuck Berry trying to like share an apron together and
well, Chuck would have none of it. You know, Chuck was willing to do the electrode thing, but he wasn't going to do the cooking thing. And Chuck is Chuck Berry. He's a very cantankerous human being.
Amazing. So has I guess, you know, I don't know if you know the reaction already, but as you know, you heard from Yoko about it, how she feels about the film.
Oh yeah, Yoko saw the film a year and a half ago. That was part of our deal. And her notes were very simple. She really loved our contemporary interviews. She wanted to see more, basically, show me more Ralph Nader at the end of the film, show more Nabucco at the end of the film. She had very little to say, if anything, about how we constructed the film and what we used or didn't use of she and John. She was focused really on the whole picture. And she also consulted on, gave her thoughts and approval of our poster, which I'm, you know, so basically Yoko helped me design the t-shirt I'm wearing.
Oh, that's great.
So that, I basically worked backwards from the t-shirt. I came up with this first and then decided to make the movie. So
yeah. And then of course you touch on this interesting like footnote, which is Roger Ailes' involvement with
well, that definitely is, again, as part of being in the transportation business. I'm connecting up the dots between 1972, Nixon's election in 68, and 2024, where Fox News, in essence, is driving this narrative of Trump and pretty much undermined and, God forbid, doesn't totally destroy democracy in America. And if that happens, one can pretty much blame Roger Ailes and Fox News for that.
Okay, I guess just a last question. I know you just had we just had the John Lennon birthday, so there were special screenings around the country. So I don't know if you could say anything about that, but I think
no, it was just a pleasure, you know, because again, if you're going to build a time machine, people have got to be able to enter the time machine, and entering the time machine on John's 84th birthday answered the question, will we still need him when he's 84? And judging from the response, the answer was an emphatic yes.
Great.
And I'm glad that this film's out. It's out in the culture. It'll be out in home video in November. It'll be on streaming, I'm sure, video on demand. You know, it's out. It's in the universe now. So, you know, that's all you really can do at this point. As I said, I'm in the transportation business, so, you know, you gotta get it out there.
Well, it's such a pleasure to see it with a big group of people on the big screen. So, so thanks so much. Thanks for being with us tonight.
Yeah, it's incredible that this is, you know, that this is going in a theater when it's sunny and bright out. You know, it's amazing how, even though it's at night, David, you're sitting in the sunlight. You know, it's,
the magic of technology. That's right.
No one will. No, it's a great Zoom background. Well, no one would ever guess that this was recorded a week before the screening.
No. Okay. Well, thanks again, and we look forward to more transportation from you in the future.
And basically, everybody, it's okay to leave the theater now. Just like Donald Trump, I'm counting the walkouts.
Okay. Nobody walked out during the film, I'm sure.
Thank you.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.